we have 6 of these to do. Once again, it's easy just to put them in and get them started in the thread and turn them down by hand till they come in contact with the rim. Now, I just had one that kind of bound up a little bit. So I'm going to take the drum key, which looks like this. We use the drum key for tuning the heads, and I'm going to just twist it in with that one. It's going in very easily, but it didn't start off too easily. That happens sometimes. And I'm going to go around again to all 6 tension points and make sure they're evenly tightened. You could use the key to continue to tighten the head, but I'm going to use this rapid way. I'm going to go from tension rod to tension rod and get some tension on there really quickly. And notice the direction that I'm going when tightening these. Okay, now we might do the fine tuning with the key. We want to make sure that the tension's just about even at each point. And what I like to do with the top head, which is called the batter head on the snare, is have it really tight for a real crispy snare drum sound. So I'm not afraid to put a good deal of tension at each one of these points. These heads will stretch after a while and will attach again the snare strainer, so we've got the snares tight up against the bottom head. And okay, we'll go a little bit tighter. Snare drums get that really crisp sound from having a tight top head. Tighten it up a bit more. You don't want to over tighten because that chokes off the sound, but you do develop a sense of what just the right amount of tightness would be, and after a while when you get experience doing this. You don't want to over tighten because it is possible, if you put too much tension on the head, to split the head, to make it split right in half. Now, as far as height is concerned, as I said, you want to get it pretty much in a comfortable position right in front of you so you can easily reach it. And right now, it should be a little higher because I like it to be about waist level. So I'm going to raise it up a bit. And that's an easy adjustment to make on the snare drum stand. That's getting to be about the right height. So now we've got the bass drum in place and we've got the snare drum in place. The next step would be to set up the hi-hat, and I'll explain that next. Next we have the hi-hat. The hi-hat usually will come disassembled like this, right in its plastic bag. And we'll take the plastic bag off. And step by step, this is your top portion of your hi-hat. And here we have the center rod. First thing we've got to do is open up the tripod part and put the footboard in place. And we can do that with that wing nut, get it set up. Now we'll put these tripod legs out until it's just a little bit, the footboard is just barely above the ground, and we'll tighten the tripod legs into position. That way it won't slip. We've got all the weight resting on the tripod. Now, we've got to take this top half of the hi-hat and set it down over that center beam. And we'll tighten this wing nut so that the center rod is in place. And we'll put this washer and then a felt washer on top of that. Now the foot pedal will pull that rod straight through the center of the hi-hat, like that. And we have a keeper here, which we can use to permanently lock the top half of the hi-hat in the place that we want it. Now, it's really easy up until that point. Now we have the hi-hat cymbals. And these are 14-inch hi-hat cymbals. There's a top and a bottom cymbal. We'll place one cymbal on top of that felt washer. We hope that it makes no contact with metal, because otherwise we get kind of a clangy sound. And the tricky part is with this, and this is what we call the clutch, the hi-hat clutch. What we have to do is separate the two felt washers and place the top cymbal like this, and then we put the other felt washer here and the metal washer, and then we tighten it up. So the clutch is what grips the top hi-hat cymbal. We want it to be a little loose so it's not really tight and choking off the sound. Now, it's just a simple matter of taking the top hi-hat cymbal and placing it down over that center rod. And now it's in place. The last thing we have to do is adjust the height of the cymbals. Right now, they're in a good place for me. They're about maybe 10 inches above where the snare drum is. And we want them to be slightly open. So we'll press down on the foot pedal and then tighten the wing nut on the clutch. When we let the pedal go, the two cymbals will be slightly apart, which is the best way to play them. And I'll show you why. Now, if we close the cymbals together, we can get a tight hi-hat sound. And the best place to play the hi-hat cymbals is at the edge or near the edge. And we use the tips of the sticks to get a really tight sound at the edge of the cymbal. And if we want to get a little bit darker sound than that, then what we would do is use this part of the stick, which is called the shoulder, and strike it right on the edge of the cymbals. Gives us a louder, darker sound. Now, for the really fancy moves with the hi-hat, what we'll do is open the cymbals as we strike them. For what we call a hi-hat bark. And when we close them without striking them, we get a chick or chip sound. Now, if we play them opening and closing, We can get a lot of really nice effects by using the pedal to open and close the cymbals on top of each other. Now we're pretty much in good shape. We've got the snare drum in a good accessible spot where we can play it easily. The bass drum pedal and the bass drum is where we want it. And the hi-hat is where we want it too. We're sitting at the edge of the seat and our legs, both legs are in a comfortable position. No stretching. Everything's sitting in a natural position. And from there, we're ready to go ahead and complete setting up the drums. We've got our bass drum, snare drum, and hi-hat in position, and now it's time to mount the tom-toms. This is a tom-tom I have holding in my hand here, and it has mounting hardware we're going to talk about. Right here is where we would attach our mounting hardware, or tom-tom arm, and first of all we'll place it into the tom-tom mount here on the bass drum, and we'll do the left one first. So we have to loosen up our wing nut, slide it in, and this keeper here, which is sometimes called memory lock, will set it up at the same height every time once we have it adjusted. So then we'll tighten up our wing nut and we can attach this tom-tom on that part of the arm, and we get this one into position. We have a keeper here also, and we tighten it up. And as long as we have it within comfortable playing position, so we don't have to overreach when we move from the snare to the tom-tom, we'll be all set. We don't want to have to reach too far to get to it. Now, that's our left tom. We have another tom, which will mount on the right side. Same way. Slides into our tom-tom mount. We'll tighten up our wing nut. Ordinarily, tom-toms will be different sizes to create different pitches. This is a 12-inch and this is a 13-inch tom-tom. These are called mounted toms or rack toms. And you want to have our right tom in a position where we can reach it easily also. From here, all we have to do is bring in the floor tom, and the floor tom sits on the floor. It's got 3 legs. Those will be adjusted to the right height, something that's comfortable for you to play on. And we put it in position, and then we can check and make sure we can reach all the drums easily, starting with the snare. And as long as we have all our drums in a comfortable position, we're ready to go. We'll move on now and we'll talk about positioning the cymbals.